The next installment of your favorite satirical horror franchise is in theaters now. That is Scream 6, Ghostface Takes
That's not the
Manhattan.
name.
What?
That's not the name.
What?
Wrong franchise.
If you say so. My production colleague is now informing me that the movie is only called Scream 6. All jokes aside, Scream 6 does make a reference to its thematic namesake, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, in the opening of the film. And let me tell you, I was a little disappointed when I was the only one laughing at that reference. Clearly, ever since Scream 6 was announced to be in New York City, every horror freak in the entire world thought, oh, Jason Takes Manhattan. I'm sure the people behind this movie made sure that one of the characters in the opening sequence was watching Jason Takes Manhattan on Halloween night. So if you are watching to hear about Scream 6, let's jump right into the opening. This film is set 1 year after the events of Scream 5 that came out in 2022, and follows Sam and Tara as they contend with a new Ghostface. It's a little odd to have a Ghostface that's not even a little bit obsessed with Sidney Prescott, but as the torch needed to be passed, it makes sense that Sidney narratively took a back seat in this movie. And actually did a little bit more than taking a back seat. She wasn't in it at all. The only original character left was Gale Weathers. So again, back to the opening. The film opens with Scream Queen Samara Weaving at a bar waiting for her date. I myself, being a huge fan of Ready or Not, was stoked to be reminded that Samara Weaving was in it, even though her fate was immediately clear from the moment the film began. Shortly thereafter, she gets killed in an alleyway by Ghostface. That's right, Samara Weaving got Drew Barrymored. Interestingly, though, this Ghostface takes off their mask. You know exactly who it is immediately after the murder. This Ghostface, however, wouldn't last long as they get murdered by another Ghostface when they get back to the apartment. This is actually the character that's watching Jason Takes Manhattan. But already the film sets itself in a meta landscape, like the Scream franchise usually does. Samara Weaving's character plays an associate film professor that teaches about 20th century slashers, and right away begins to delve into the idea that the tropes that are popular in slashers or horror movies of the time can reflect social anxieties of the time that they came out. Something that I learned a lot of in school, and something that I still keep an eye on when I see new horror movies. So I'm glad to see that even after 6 installments, Scream is still sticking to what they intended to in their first film, to explore the foundations of and expose the pillars of the horror genre. So after the opening, we've got a through and through Scream movie. There's the final girl, well in this case 2, and a Ghostface, maybe plural, hunting them. It's the classic 1996 whodunit all over again, right? Maybe, but this time it's in a big city instead of a small town. I'm gonna try not to go into too many plot spoilers, but if I slip and reveal the identity of Ghostface, that's on me, but also on you, because you're watching. As the baseline for this review, I want to make it very clear that I think the Scream franchise, in terms of horror slashers, is the most consistent. The Halloween movies are a roller coaster of quality. They go from Halloween 1, one of the greatest movies of all time, to Halloween 6 with the Druids? I'd rather not. Friday the 13th is pure camp, pun intended, and really doesn't take itself too seriously. There's also no legitimate final girl, and a lot of other regular horror tropes that you usually see in slasher movies are the rules are sort of bent in Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Street is a second roller coaster. Texas Chainsaw has some great movies and some really bad movies, like most of the remakes. Hellraiser is really prone to straight to DVD. Quick disclaimer, the first 1 or 2 of all of these franchises are fantastic. So don't think I'm trying to trash my favorite genre here, because I'm not. But with the exception of Scream 3, Scream has really committed to giving 100% entertaining slasher movies. In addition to that, they never lose sight of their goal of satirizing the horror genre. So, as the character Mindy says in this film, the sequel to the requel needs to top the requel in every way. You have blood and gore, body count, nostalgia factor, everything. On a very baseline level, Scream 6 definitely topped Scream 5. If we're talking body count, it makes sense that they have it in New York, because you can have scenes like the convenience store, where right away, 4 people just gone. And that's 4 more people to this Ghostface's kill count. Something that you can't really have in a small town because there aren't as many opportunities or places to go to have those opportunities. And nostalgia factor, I mean, come on. This one has the entire Ghostface shrine/museum with the costumes and masks of every past Ghostface, the weapons they used to murder their victims, hand-drawn portraits of those Ghostfaces, as well as other random memorabilia like the TV that killed Stu. Side note, I think somebody on the script writing team of this movie saw the Reddit theories that Stu might be alive, and they put a little morsel of information. They implied that Stu Macher might be alive. Here's hoping for Scream 7. To me, it feels like the team behind Scream 6 really acknowledged Sidney's significance in the franchise. And not having Sidney in this movie, they really needed a way to make up for that. From my viewpoint, that was the point of the so-called Core 4. The 4 main characters that they had in this film, and in Scream 5 for that matter. Those characters being Samantha, Tara, Mindy, and Chad. While they might seem invincible with plot armor, at least Samantha and Tara, I mean, Mindy and Chad have been stabbed Lord knows how many times and they're still breathing. I mean, that's just a miracle in and of itself. It just feels as if the Scream movies are now trying to fill the Sidney void with as many characters as they possibly can. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, I'm just saying it's something to watch out for in future films. You keep saying that these main characters are expendable in the rules of the horror franchise, yet none of them die. Maybe Scream 7, one of them has to bite the dust. Satire as a genre usually has some sort of lifespan in that the thing that the work is satirizing either ends on its own or the people reading the satire end the thing being satirized because of the satire. I know that's a lot of alphabet soup, but just bear with me for 1 second. In 1996, with the original Scream, it was mostly to discuss the state of slashers at the time, where somebody would pick up an item, use it once, and then drop it. Or the friends of the final girl couldn't be promiscuous in any way or else they would die. The killer always being someone you know or are close to. So when the second Scream movie came out, it was sort of just a continuation of that. And by the time the third one came out, you're getting into the territory of unnecessary slasher sequels. Think Halloween 4, 5, where the main character's not there anymore. They're trying to stretch out a story that doesn't fit, and they're just adding unnecessary details. Like I mentioned previously, I think Scream 3 is the weakest out of the franchise. When they get to Scream 4, it's a more modern retelling of the same slasher narrative. What I'm trying to say here is that every Scream movie focuses on a different part of the slasher foundation. You have the first with the introduction of the characters, the second being a strange continuation that somehow works, the third being the one that nobody asked for, the fourth a modern retelling. So if you think of it this way, that satire has a lifespan, it's incredible that Scream has been able to last this long, going over and poking fun at the same tropes of the same genre, and not losing steam by very much at all. I think this is because the horror genre continues to evolve. And since the horror genre being so popular today is able to pump out movie after movie after movie with lower and lower budgets, the real-world elements for Scream to adapt into narrative works will continue to expand. And if you ask me, as long as they do continue to expand, we will always, always have Scream movies. So when it really gets down to it, I think Scream 6 is probably one of my favorites in the franchise. The characters were great, the script was super strong, this Ghostface was menacing. Although he did use a shotgun at one point. Don't know how I feel about that, but you've got to up the ante a little bit, I guess. And seeing certain characters' indifference to Ghostface really hammers it home for me. There are certain scenes where characters just feel like, oh, again we have to go through this? Like when Gale Weathers is on the phone with Ghostface and says, "Can you please hold?" and puts Ghostface on hold while they're on the phone. That was incredible. Honestly, it's one of the shortest but one of the best scenes in the movie. Now, I don't want to be that guy that has the clickbait article that kind of tries to anticipate what happens in Scream 7, but I'm going to be that guy for a second. If we're keeping with the narrative that the killers in Scream 5 and 6 are parallel to the killers in Scream 1 and 2, who was the killer in Scream 3? A sibling of Sidney Prescott. Now, the main characters in Scream 5 and 6 so far are two sisters. It might be a little too obvious to have one of those be the next Ghostface, considering the fact that Samantha had a really tough time letting go of Billy Loomis's mask. But I still think in Scream 7, the killer is going to be related to the sisters in some capacity. Maybe another one of Billy Loomis's children? We'll have to wait and find out. Hopefully the movie gets greenlit, but like I said, I really don't think we'll have to worry about that in the slightest. And I don't want to spoil who the killer was in this one, but if you've seen Scream 1 and 2, and you've seen Scream 5, I'm sure you can maybe figure out who the killer is in Scream 6. Think about that for a second. So please, if you're anything like me and you just love slasher movies for the sake of slasher movies, please go check out Scream 6 in theaters. You will not regret it. And while Ghostface doesn't have a boxing match on a roof like Jason does in his movie, there's still a lot of elements that make the big city really work for this installment. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll be sure to catch you guys in the next Cellar Dwellers film review.